Almost 3 years have passed since I have arrived here at Forge Angstrom, and only now the Imperium has begun mobilizing to counterattack the secessionist movement started by the Badab's tyrant, Master Huron. A task force of Red Scorpions and Firehawks arrives to prosecute justice and retribution on the traitors, only to find them defeated and imprisoned. They don't seem very happy with this, damn bloodthirsty maniacs. The loot and prizes are all mine, or rather my rogue traders' dynasty, my lamenters, my blood angels and the Forge Angstrom's share for going above and beyond duty and repairing the battle damage. A single barge is a considerable prize, since even the Blood Angel chapter only has 3 barges, for example. And that's because I saved the Bellis back at Forge Shenlong, or there would only be 2. Add to that a strike cruiser still getting repaired and a couple of support ships, and their chapter has increased in strength by over 25%. The Lamenters were already fleet-based, so 3 more battle barges plus the Starfort as a fortress monastery will propel them in the same rankings as the Dark Angels or the Iron Fists. Their luck has took a turn for the better, despite the horrendous casualties they took in conquering these assets. That Inquisitor dislikes the shift in the power rankings. Of course he does, the scheming bastard. Not really his mandate though. I do try to divert him onto new avenues of thought, because his disappearance wouldn't solve the problem, just delay it. Inquisitor, I am certain the Senatories Imperialis will reach the same conclusion. The Astral Claws will be declared excommunicated. Most likely the Tiger_Claws as well, because there are signs of having been part of this secessionist plot for centuries. Corian_Sumatris had the rank of captain in the Astral Claws, but he is well known for belonging to the Tiger Claws centuries ago. His body is stored by the Mechonicus in stasis, as are all the dead from their insidious attack on Forge Angstrom. I say with the confidence of an Astartes chapter master. That includes the Lamenters, but I will gladly pay the gene tithe with their bodies. I don't plan to use that damaged seed anyway. I don't look like a space marine yet, although I have grown in body size somewhat, and I am wearing Archeo's power armor, painted in the Lamenter's yellow with pauldrons decorated in my house's colors. I also wear an iron halo, not the stolen Rosarius, a relic power sword named Golden Fang, and a spectral pattern bolter on my shoulder linked to my Mew, plus a couple of digital weapons, all captured from that Captain Sumatris. Of course, I kinda suck at using all these weapons and armor, but at least I look impressive. Even my wolf thinks so. Canis examines me with doubtful eyes, and sniffs the Inquisitor again. Doesn't smell corrupted, but there are many kinds of reasons he might want to kill me. I will decide what to do with the rebel space marines. After examining all the evidence, he proclaims in a righteous tone, and slams his warhammer on the metal floor. Have it your way, Tin Pot Dictator. I have a perfect alibi, and a hero's reputation right now. Of course, Inquisitor. Well then, may the Emperor aid you in your duty. My chapter will depart in a month, once our dead have been released back into our care. I announced in a flat tone and walk away, patting Canis for his loyal service. This isn't over, Master Lancefire. The Jandas Frane yells after me, but I pretend not to hear him. His enspelled rosette has little effect on me, and his psycho powers have 0 or null chances of reaching me. The poor Inquisitor must feel like talking to a blank wall. The first new Katakan regiment has already arrived and 11 more are due to arrive in 2 or 3 weeks. I guess we're not shooting this Inquisitor? Chaplain Delos asks me with faint amusement. And not via implant or mind transmission. Woof? Canis asks in surprise. I sigh inward and keep walking. Those Red Scorpions have surely heard that. Most likely, it was exactly the point the chaplain tried to make. Warn them we will not get pressured or bullied, and another Inquisitor might have bit a bullet when he tried. A few days later, I get invited to chat with the leader of the Red Scorpions, a man named Lord High Commander Veronortes. He looks at me with wary eyes, and offers me food and drink. At least it's a start. Don't worry, Astartes. I don't bite. I mutter in between bites, and offer my Canis some of that exotic meat. There are too many species of edible animals in the galaxy, and 10 times as many plants. You are only a neophyte, how come you were elected to lead the Lamenters? You might be under strength, but even so, there are plenty of experienced brothers remaining. He wonders in a curious voice. Perhaps so, But I am a blank and thus immune to chaos. It is the lesson of the Badab's tyrant. No matter how strong a chapter is, if the head is infected they all go to hell. The Blood Angels have already created an entire company made only of blanks, and they seem immune to that black rage curse. Even the red thirst seems manageable, more or less. I explain politely and offer my wolf half of the juicy steak. Canis eats it with disgust, so it's not lethal, only cooked. Well, wolves don't like cooked meat much, no surprise there. The red scorpion tilts his head in deep thought. Even so, it is not enough to be a blank. You took on 3 Astartes chapters and won so decisively that all the remaining apothecaries and sanguinary priests agreed to your nomination. Proof of command ability, and perhaps hoping to turn their luck around. Is that so? The man asks in a gentler voice. The gene seed lamenters have, it has been deliberately damaged, Lord Ortiz. Manipulated during the founding. Most likely by Mars, going by the traces I could find in the datasphere. I don't doubt the intention was good, probably to cut away the Blood Angel's curse via gene splicing and psychic baffling. Only it didn't last long. All my battle brothers that were involved in the recent boarding actions died due to rage and thirst. Less so for my Blood Angel's bodyguards, but they are not blanks either, only more used to restraining themselves. I explain patiently. I know all Astartes chapters keep these things hidden like dark secrets, but I don't really care about Hat, do I? So what will you do then? Ask for gene seeds from the Blood Angels? Would they agree to such a thing? The red scorpion wonders in a pity tone. I nod and pet my wolf. Yes, I will ask, and they will agree. Blood Angel seed will work great for the new blank recruits. I know, I have the same gene seed and I conquered that silly red thirst in a few hours. For my other brothers, plus Tech Marines and all the rest, I will need to look elsewhere. Most likely, a chapter with pure gene seeds like the Scythes of the Emperor. Or perhaps the Red Scorpions, I hear they have over 90% purity. I ask shamelessly, while taking out a data slate with a list of conquered loot and relics. Including Terminator armor and rare weapons and even tanks or gunships. I did have a whole collection, both inside the Tesseract and outside. Lord Ortiz frowned and checked the slate with an angry look. Perhaps nobody else offered him valuable artifacts and vehicles for a few gene seeds. You can spare 10 intact Terminator armors? 10 more turreted Land Raider tanks? 1,000 armed sentinels with heavy bolters and chain swords, for our serfs, and 50 Predator tanks armed with volcano lances. Even Furies and Thunderhawks, you could found a new chapter with all these. The veteran Astartes exclaimed in outrage. I do have a chapter, but no Astartes. It will take decades till the Lamenters are back to strength, and you would lose fewer brothers if they have good equipment. Thus, you could spare a portion of the gene seed for the Lamenters. You could also use Tech Marines as pilots and gunners for all the vehicles, just like I plan to do. Give them a good mind impulse implant, and they can help support an assault from afar, while protected by vehicle armor. I argued in a logical voice. Wasn't sure the voice of reason would work, but I could try. Fuel losses, huh? That's definitely true. I will need to consult with my captains and the apothecaries. We have never given away our gene seed, he murmured to himself. Canis nudged me towards the wine bottle, but I resisted. I haven't won yet. There might be a strike cruiser available as well, once it is repaired. I do have too many of them, and not enough neophytes and aspirants to man them. Surely, a blank captain like my daughter Fenona will not fall to chaos, and just like my Sisters of Silence she is portable Gellerfield. Also, nulls are great mothers for new blank recruits. I offered with a thin smile. Fenona would keep making babies of her own, and some of them will be blanks. It was a honey trap, and the chapter master of the Red Scorpions saw it instantly. Some clause for securing her status as a free citizen and not a serf will be needed though. Lord Ortiz gulped his wine cup and rose to his feet. As it happens, we do have an Inquisitor available, to request a squad of Silent Sisters for our fleet. I will explain this to my captains, and we will have an answer soon, Lord Lancefire. He offered politely and held out his hand for a handshake. Now, I could drink a toast for this victory. So I did. As expected, the Red Scorpions agreed to my proposal, although they demand 2 cruisers for their reduced recovery ability in the next decade, until their progenoid glands create more gene seed. I am almost tempted to refuse, just to spite them. Then again, pure gene seeds are rare. I disperse my silent sisters among the largest ships to protect their Geller fields from warp intrusion, because the remaining Lamenters still carry the curse. That sometimes results in warp storms yanking them away or unlucky damage to their warp drives or malfunctioning weapons and many similar problems. Most of the Lamenters have moved to the Starfleet, which has its own warpless engines now, and only an honor guard travels on the Icarus carrier. The new Katakan regiments are also spread among the barges and cruisers, because I don't trust those Navy troop transports at all. They look like they would explode at the first missile or lance that might hit them. However, ships are ships and one can never have enough of them. A couple of Blood Angels depart for Bale with their new barge and cruiser, escorted by a pair of my Los Angeles destroyers. They also carry 1,000 Katakans, those I got most complaints about. Pretty sure the Blood Angels will whip them into shape, and possibly even induct some of them as new aspirants. I'm not sure how that Death World keeps producing so many regiments. There must be hundreds of Katakan regiments in the Astra Militarum, plus just as many on their own homeworld of Katakan. They possibly bang as many times as possible, to keep their numbers high. Not a bad idea, in fact. I did convince a new batch of Katakan women to become my personal guard, and by that I mean concubines. Only as a chapter master I have to retain dignity and stuff and be more respectful. Oh yeah, big boy. Pump those hips, and give me a Space Marine baby. My current personal guard yells and embraces me tight. I think my spine creaked. I inject my gene seed and fall to the side, a bit exhausted. Still much better than all these Astartes that inject other men with their gene seed. I'm not sure why the Emperor came up with that idea of asexual reproduction among men. The guy was strange though, and probably lived among the Greeks and the Spartans. The companions of Alexander the Great were battle brothers just like his Space Marines, and lovers too. Thus, he now has an imperium of man, which kinda sucks if you're a woman. On that note, Helena and Catherine arrive next, and begin massaging my tired and bruised body with healing oils and grabby hands. Training with Astartes is a bit painful, and the Katakan concubines aren't gentle either. Helena has finally given birth to a blank boy and Catherine has 2 blank daughters, among other kids without the immunity. See, Lord Pef? We were right to follow you, after all. An entire Astartes chapter, and so many heroic deeds. So will you recruit little Homer to become an Astartes like his father? Helena asks softly, and rest her head on my shoulder. I nod in agreement and kiss her forehead, simply enjoying Katarine's massage of my progenitor glands. In his late teens, at the earliest, Homer needs to learn all he can from a tech priest, just like I have, and sire his own natural children. Perhaps a few more nulls will appear, I say in a relieved voice. Again with the tech priests. Why not call a confessor or a sister from Orders_Famulus? Helena argues in a convincing voice, and this time she might be right. Those women do have excellent skills, both as teachers and as genetic matchmakers. Many nobles make use of their talents to preserve or enhance their house's genetic purity and special talents. All right, my dear. Place a call for a squad of those sisters, because I do have many children already and many more to come. They could teach evening lessons, while the tech priests have morning lessons with my kids. I allow as Catherine climbs on me for another pleasant duty. You better have some seed left for me too, after Kathy is done. How goes the cloning project? Helena demands in a breathy voice, and bites my ear for attention. Too much, woman. I'm not without limits, although I should be good 2 more times. Not well at all. Only genes from my non-blank kids can be cloned successfully, for now. But 1,000 girls like Larisa are still great, and same for more night pilots like Lord Whitelance and Lord Vance Star. I mutter back, and consider her question. Helena wouldn't ask unless, damn Adepta Sororitas. Still after me, and abusing my trust. My order would be very grateful if some of your daughters will be sent to the Convent Sanctorum on Ophelia_7. Not the blanks, of course. She entices me in a throaty voice. I meditate on that offer for the next leg of the trip. It is good and bad at the same time. Children of mine in the clutches of a religious order? Bad. Then again, most of my non-blank kids will either join the trader fleet or as adepts on Forge Retribution. The cult Mechonicus is a religious order too. But unlike the tech priests, the sisters kinda abuse the kids sent in their care, like any militant order. In the end, that matters more, for me. Not going to happen, Helena. Child abuse is not on my wish list for my kids, plus Ophelia has no real fleet or orbital defenses. Sooner or later they will be invaded and exterminated. I declare as my own fleet arrives at Illiva, the orbit full of orbital forts and hundreds of corvettes, plus a few battle cruisers. My dear Helena looks out the bridge window, and takes in the massive effort I have put in for defense. The sisters wish to be independent, so no navy or Mechonicus base is allowed in the Ophelia system. Your clan has so many warships, no wonder you go and rescue others. She muses in a deep yearning voice. And it is still not enough. That's why I've brought a Starfleet and an Astartes chapter to defend my capital. I answer as the familiar myriad of Vox messages begin to flood the Vox box, with demands from all my subjects. It seems another cult has risen up in a hive city, and Victor has ordered a dozen PDF regiments to suppress the rebellion and capture the leaders for trial and execution. They didn't succeed fast enough, and now the whole city is divided in a civil war. Oh well, it is 40k. Business as usual for these times. Also, I did bring 17 Katakan regiments with my fleet, plus 60 surviving Blood Angels. Might as well let them stretch their legs and test the new weapons. In less than a month, the rebellion is quashed brutally and I obtain almost 100 million of new lobotomized servitors with crude implants and rough bionic limbs. Time to put them to work, as miners and farmers and woodcutters. There are plenty new worlds awaiting civilization around, and servitors will serve the Emperor, even in death. In a single year, the Icarus makes a round and deposits the Katakan regiments on their new jungle planets, while other ships carry forgers and tech priests, plus immigrants and servitors to begin colonization. Sadly, my brother Varian did not completely succeed in his task, and only half of the northern orcs have agreed to board cheap transport to be sent to fight the Necrons. He might have, if he didn't try to battle an orc boss in melee. Some sort of manliness ritual, I guess? Oh well. Orcs are strong and die hard. Don't wrestle orcs in your next life, silly brother from another mother. My daughter Teresa has command of the Northern Fleet now, as she isn't the type to wrestle, except perhaps in bed. She has a dozen kids already, which is amazing. I will need to reward her effort with 10,000 thrones, just like I do for everyone else. Those Eldar cruisers have all sold for 10 billion each, even damaged as they were. I can sponsor population growth for a century easily, and make sure the new generations get low-level technician training on the outer colonies. The hive cities are a different problem, as the local nobles would oppose mass literacy projects out of inertia or fear. But I don't need all the hive cities civilized, only my capital and the outlying towns. Starting from the top, and with the young generations, and then working my way down. There are enough tech priests here to keep the utilities and other services working, but to create a factory world will need educated people, or at least 10% of them. The celebrations for my return last for a whole month, with military parades and picked projections of our fleet actions in the Badab War, the crusade in the Magog sector and the valiant defense of Forge Angstrom from traitor forces. Of course, I do not stay for all that, instead returning to my blank village, which has grown into a modern town by now. Here, everyone is educated and civilized, and my tech priests make sure there are training courses and various schools for every important specialty. Military arts and officer schools, manufacture and production, medicine and botany. Over 5,000 blanks, now joined by a new batch of silent sisters and my freshly born kids. Alana is ecstatic as we visit the place, and nobody recoils in fear from her pariah aura. This is wonderful, Pef. Everything is so clean and bright, and everyone is a blank. It's like a dream. Many of the machine spirits in this place, from the Geller generators to the void shields and the defensive batteries, are also blank, using organic components harvested locally. However, only 200 men are of age for Astartes recruitment, but it will do for now, one company for my Lamenters and another for the Blood Angels, in exchange for more gene seeds. Spread around the town center are the family centers, basically 200 large mansions housing the harems of the blank men, including my own and Victor's. Even Katakans cannot resist so much concentration of null psyche, so the women are housed at some distance, just to keep them sane. Pregnant women are even more sensitive, but there's nothing else I can do. And yet, no other miracle like Janice has appeared, despite 2 more psychers being born and sent to the Schola Progenium on Terra Viantax. In another village, we have the Navigator compound, which I visit sometimes to find another resilient psyker like Rose. No luck so far, but then these kids are not soulbound to the Emperor, which reformats their mind to withstand the warp and all its nightmares. They live under a Geller field, and train their abilities slowly and more gently. I'm in no rush anyway. I did capture hundreds of new navigators, which simply get released at the edge of the compound a few at a time. Miracles happen all the time, even more so for navigators and astropaths. And of course, once in a while an empty ship simply appears in orbit, or in the asteroid field, devoid of crew but otherwise undamaged. Pirate destroyers, astral claws destroyers, even an intact battle barge with Mantis Warriors symbols. Finders keepers is the rule, so I get to keep these ships, and it's even legal. Decima is suspicious and Hestia outright tells me I am the one responsible. I agree, my dear. Of course I brought a battle barge here, with my mind. Worship me. I proclaim heroically and point at the sky. Sadly, the Null Maiden simply slices a finger across her armored gorget, which covers her neck. No luck. Captain Aphael from the Blood Angels arrives one day, and brings with him Ludvius and Rafan, which is great. You got your own chapter, I see. Not bad for a whiny trader. Rafan comments wryly at my pretty Astartes armor and sanguinary guards. It wasn't my idea, you know. They kinda forced me into this. And the angel showed up to enforce the claim. I defended myself while shaking hands with the 3 of them. You've grown taller, Captain. Still got that baby face though. Ludvius observes smartly. Well, he does have 7 implants, so it makes sense. Ladies love it, so I can't complain. I'm not like you guys, impregnating men with your seed. I'm modest like that. I laud myself while Chaplain Delos slaps his helmet in despair. Probably shouldn't have said that out loud. Captain Aphael simply smiles serenely and gestures me aside. And thus, we seclude ourselves in my master quarters, which might be inspired by all those fabricators I have visited, thus it has at least 1,000 relics and armor bits for decoration. Nice quarters, Lord Pef. You almost get the feeling right. But the baby face spoils everything. He comments in a joking tone. Did I get some gene seeds? I ask more to the point. The Astartes captain picks up a grav gun and plays with it, possibly trying to scare me. But I feel nothing, because I cheat. He gets frozen in my tesseract while I restore the weapon on its mantle and sit at my desk, and then unfreeze him. Gene seeds? I ask as if no time has passed at all, or he got lost in thought while I moved around. Being mysterious is a bit risky, but this time it works. I have heard of your strange powers, Master Lancefire. Brother Ludvius was adamant about that, and our new librarian Mephiston agrees. The angel watches over you, which is not a bad thing at all. One day, I will reach the same size as a Primarch. My mind grows in strength every year, and so does my body. And for that, I can only thank Ludvius for calling that angel. How is Mephiston? Did he take the spear yet? I ask as if it has already happened. Captain Aphael sighs, and looks around my quarters again. Not yet, but I believe it will happen soon. They are still testing him for corruption. The last adventure of Brother Archeo has made everyone paranoid, and that Chaos Sorcerer in our dungeon doesn't help at all. Still got nothing out of him? His name is Fabius, of some traitor legion. I hope you did chop off his limbs at least. The only use of those limbs would be to escape, right? I ask rhetorically. His face tells me they didn't consider it. A bunch of childish naive idiots, all of them. That's so dishonorable and logical. Raised by a tech priest, and it shows. The angelic Astartes comments in a sad voice. I wouldn't care if that guy gets to the Grail and steals the blood, except my kids are there. If they get killed by your stupidity, I will retaliate. What about the accomplice, that whatever guy who invited the sorcerer inside your fortress? Still alive? I asked curious. Captain Aphael blinks and stares at me for a minute. Seems they didn't even investigate the crime. Oh well. No wonder Inquisitors could play these naive giants like puppets. It seems I need to return to my ship and place an astropath call to our fortress. Wouldn't want your sons to die for our stupidity. I hear a lot of places got exterminated without warning, he says a bit wary. I smiled politely. Kamara was the most difficult. We'll have to turn my attention on them again. I heard of a Drukhari raid on that agri world. It seems they didn't get the message, so I'll have to insist. I mused to myself softly. Astartes have great hearing anyway. I'm sure he got the message, unlike the crazy Dark Eldar. Then again, I was an angel of death now. Might as well prove it, with some death and mayhem. Not right now, because I wanted to finish the Stole_Vi campaign and exterminate both the Orcs and the Necrons there. Perhaps capture the Catan shard they had. My battleships already had the new Warpless engines, plus 2 torpedo cells of 100 torpedo each, but that was merely an emergency measure, just in case we got invaded by something. The battleships were not combat ready, and will not be for 5 decades. I wanted them plated in adamantium and blackstone, just like I was doing for all the Lamenters and the heavy tanks of my armor regiments. Same thing for my battle cruisers, starting with the Canticle, then the gifted Mercury from Forge Kronos, and then the other 2 we haven't discovered yet. My mind made up, I began sending orders to my fleet to prepare for a limited deployment. 1 battle barge, 2 cruisers armed with Nova cannons, and 20 destroyers. Blackstone had been lined around the engine room and the bridge for those ships, which would make warp travel somewhat safer. A very small fleet, given what my dynasty could field, but this would be just a small incursion. A minute later, Ludvius and Raven ran inside my quarters with wide grins on their faces. Another crusade? We have to come. I smiled kindly and nodded. Sure, why not? But I do need those gene seeds. Someone did bring them, right? Yes, Lord Peth. They are being transported on the Starfleet right now, but I guess Captain Aphale didn't tell you. So you have more blank sons already? You sure work hard. My bodyguard praised me with a knowing look. What could I say to that? I worked hard every day. Go to my forge master and have him fit you with new armor plates. I thought I sent some of those plates, with the barge I gifted your chapter, I demanded as I noticed they lacked the blackstone plates that all my other Astartes had already. Not Codex approved, or something. Our librarians don't like them. Ludvius explained in a sadder voice. Right, because protection from the warp must be in the Codex, I see. Just like growing wings is in the Codex. One day I will visit Bale and straighten your chapter out. I'll ask the Angel explain things, while I beat a few defenseless librarians with their books. I mutter in annoyance. By next day, the fleet is on the way, while Captain Aphale has departed for Bale with 100 new blank recruits. Technically, I could give them more, but I want these men to be educated and have their own kids before they leave. Critical thinking and a basis for science and technology will help them more in their lifetime of strife that will end in brutal death. My sons and grandsons will not be farmer boys manipulated into traps and plots by whatever enemy comes first. Back on Oliva, my apothecary and sanguinary priests have already begun implantation for new tech marines, plus a company of blank lamenters. Couldn't help with that part, except proving good quality gene seeds. The Red Scorpion's genes will work well enough for the non-combat roles, be they herbalists or lawkeepers or tech marines. My apothecary confirmed they had 94% purity, which was amazing for this era. And because the Blood Angels did not lose the original blood of Sanguinius, they had even higher purity. The dead bodies of my lamenters were simply sent to forge Entax without extracting the gene seed at all. If the Mechonicus wanted the gene type they could have it all, 900 dead brothers, paid in advance. And so said my written message to the Fabricator General. Do not expect more of it, trying new gene stuff that's not damaged in fabrication. Their armor better be in excellent shape when returned. Following our fleet was a forge ship and a dozen mineral barges with mining equipment, just in case we accidentally found more blackstone to mine. And 3 weeks later, we arrived at Dole to find the planet embroiled into a large-scale war, and 100 Orc ships bombarding the Necron positions. A golden figure, at least 50 meters tall and trailing whips made of living stone, was battling a pair of giant Orc gargants, while thousands of Necron machines and millions of warriors supported it from afar. Then under my eyes, the golden figure turned right towards my fleet and smiled, with a tingle of mental communication trying to reach my mind. Must be the Crimson_God then. He felt similar to Zorhulash, the Catan from Sutha. I was pretty sure the Catan could have won easily, but perhaps it wasn't often the Necrons let it out to play. A salvo from a Gargant passed right through the Catan and pulverized a few Necron divisions, as the Crimson God became phased and untouchable. Perhaps he was worried I might use some psycho power? Necrons were still vulnerable to that, and so were the Catan. "Captain, do we engage the Orcs?" I heard the gunnery officer ask in anticipation. I held my left hand up for silence, just as Alana tried to speak. "Wait, they have a Catan. I want to see what it can do." The ship's holoscreen couldn't get the high detail I could observe via the Tesseract labyrinth, and most of our long-range auguries were slightly distorted by the WA field or by some Necron dampening field, or both. Then something flashed on board an Orc cruiser, and down on the ground a large Orc boss appeared via teleport. "Necron God. Fight me, good fight. Wah!" The idiot mushroom screamed as his Orcish underlings cheered him on. The Gargant stopped firing and a sort of impromptu ring formed with the Catan and the Orc boss inside. A giant lightning claw stuck the Catan in the chest, and the Orc tried to headbutt the larger enemy in mid-jump. And then the figure smiled, with red teeth. "I do enjoy a good fight, but most of all, I enjoy bloodshed." The Catan replied politely, ignoring the arcing voltage and the adamantium spikes stuck inside in his stomach. Instead, the Crimson God grabbed the Orc by the rusty spiked shoulders, and kept him in midair with the trailing chains, and then ripped the Orc boss to shreds. He was still smiling, like this was a great day. I sighed inward. Damn, boss had been too weak. Fighting resumed, but without much coordination for the green mushrooms, especially as the Orc ships began vanishing from orbit. That might have been my fault, but I'm not sorry. In an hour, the Gargants were destroyed and the Necron armies began advancing, massacring million after million of greenskins, their Gauss rifles and many other weapons no longer ineffective. I decided to risk it. A flick of my gloved finger plunged an atmospheric incendiary torpedo right on the other side of the planet and exploded, rapidly igniting all the air and biomass and spreading fast around the globe. "My lord, that seems to be an exterminatus," Chaplain Delos observed in horror. "Please make a point with that. All I see is two Xenos fighting each other. Exterminatus is the correct solution, as per the Codex, isn't it?" I asked in a sterner tone. I waited for the flames to engulf the smiling Catan and then I tried to whisk him away in my labyrinth. An immense headache blinded me, and the golden being vanished, falling through the ground towards a tomb deep underground. Damn it. I have failed. It hurts my pride to have failed, and the damn headache is certainly not natural. I suspect the Necron Lord or Pharaoh has some type of mind control shackle over the Catan, which kinda makes sense in hindsight. However the Tesseract labyrinth worked, it wasn't able to unbind the Catan, which sucked for me. The Xenos are eliminated, Lord Pef. The world burns. Alana proclaims naively. My headache still pulses painfully in my temples. I shrug and reply softly. On the surface, the Catan allowed the world to burn, perhaps to cleanse the Orcs from this world. He used us. What now, Captain? Brother Ludvius asks in a curious tone. Nothing else we can do here, brother. The flames will burn for months, and the Catan cannot be damaged by mortal weapons. We shall move onwards and scour the world of Draven of the same Xenos. I answer after considering for a minute. Necron Tomb world of Draven is also a part of the Novak dynasty, and also under attack by Orcs, several was in fact. In less than a day, we arrive at the nearby Necron world to find it mostly conquered by Orcs, at least the surface. 100 Orc rocks and a similar number of Orc ships, including a couple enormous terror ships, and another ironclad battleship. Blown-up fragments of Necron and Orc vessels litter the void, even some Eldar derelicts and a dozen Navy troop transports. There has been a failed invasion here, or a number of them. On the ground, Orcs are casually repurposing captured Necron weapons and anti-grav platforms into Orcish machinery powered by pedaling Gritchins and steam engines. Pain boys are grafting Necron limbs on their greenskin brethren, and their Orc war boss wears proudly an armor of ancient runic Necron origin, and holds a 5-meter-long nucleonic lance like a pistol. These orcs are winning, and would become hard to stop for any human force. In orbit above Draven, the same thing happens. Blackstone armor is slapped on top of their ragged warships, and because Blackstone is black it increases in durability even further. Eldar Brightlances and Necron Gauss cannons are being welded beside macro cannons and plasma batteries, turning their cruisers and battleship into formidable death machines. The spectacle is very impressive and a bit scary. My fleet's chances are minimal against such overwhelming firepower, and our torpedoes will probably not damage their larger warships. Not enough. Wenchen, Nova cannon on the Orc battleship. Destroyers, dive for torpedo strike on my mark. Maintain passive sensors only. I command and relax in the captain chair. Canis nudges my left glove, and eyes the fleet arrayed on the holoscreen. I know, buddy, we will steal their stuff, like we always do. Just need a flare and smoke screen. Using Xenotech openly would likely get me flayed alive or something of that nature. But a potent orc wad to deploy when needed. That would be awesome too. Target at maximum range, Captain. Firing. Wenchen announces on the clan's Vox channel, after maneuvering into an advantageous firing position. Much farther range than even our long-range torpedoes, the Nova cannons are the strongest classical weapon in humanity's arsenal. Sure, there are warp vortex weapons, but those are not classical, nor available to normal Navy units. As expected, not even the Nova shell is powerful enough to destroy the Blackstone-plated Orc ironclad, and merely disables the void shields. In the same instant of sensor blindness, a dozen capital Orc ships vanish in my pocket dimension, while my left gauntlet pats Canis on his wise head. He does have good ideas, my smart wolf. The Orc boss and his nearby mech and nob guards, as well as 100 Stompers and Gargant's Titan-class behemoths vanish as well, while another Exterminatus torpedo detonates on the far side of the planet. I need this war boss to maintain the warfield, and this is both bad and good. Good because their silly adaptations will keep working. Bad because the damn Orc boss is slowly moving inside the labyrinth, his warfield helping him overpower the dimensional differential. Oh well, it would take him years to escape, and I don't plan to keep him for years. Of course, right now the Orc fleet is becoming a mess, Orcs fighting each other for dominance while their greenskin fellows burn alive on the surface of Draven. The Orc rocks are useless to me, but they will help in my plans, at least several of them still filled with Orc boys and other troops. Good shot, Wenchen. That battleship has vanished, somewhere. I praise my uncle, yet allowing for the ironclad's miraculous reappearance over a friendly forged world, like retribution. Indeed, Captain. Let's hope your luck holds and that vessel will return to us empty of Xenos, just like it has happened before. My uncle replies in a teasing voice. Well, rogue traders are not brainwashed zealots, and they can add 2 + 2. Pretty much the only free thinkers remaining in the Imperium, or outside it. If that's the Emperor's will, uncle, then we will gladly accept such a gift. I comment piously. My bodyguards all snort in disbelief, except Chaplain Delos, who prays loudly for another miracle. Don't worry, brother. I'm just getting started. Alana kisses my cheek for good luck, and whispers a promise in my ear. If that promise will end with a dozen more blank kids, then we're all set. I urge the Serenity for the Vanquished onward, which works better now with the upgraded Trazyn-class reactor. Even if we cannot install the gigantic warpless drive on the barge yet, the reactor is slightly more manageable. By chopping off some support beams and reducing the length of the inner walkways, the battleship-grade reactor can and has been installed on battle barges. Well, on this barge for now, the Serenity. It is still a plasma reactor after all, if somehow 3 times stronger and more efficient. For fuel is used hydrogen with jets of oxygen to increase temperature and burn rate, which also makes refueling easier, and at need simply scooping out cometary ice. One day every vehicle of humanity will have a miniaturized version of the Makar's pattern plasma reactor, and shields and weapons of higher strength and reliability. It just takes enormous effort and long time to start meaningful changes in the Imperium. Even now, after decades of spreading new and better templates, the Astra Militarum still doesn't have new vehicles or ground support aircraft. Elite regiments here and there do receive a few of my earliest templates, durable tracks and night vision sensors for example, but that's only a drop in the ocean. The Imperium of Man is very resistant to change, and various organizations work hard to maintain their grip and control over the military powers, especially the Administratum. Of course, the Astartes and the forges here in the Ultima sector have fewer qualms about adapting to better designs and more powerful weapons, like I have found out when my troops invaded Badab and fought against serfs and aspirants' vehicles armed with triple-barrel multi-lasers and hunter-killer missiles. For another week we skirmish with the remaining orcs, giving my captains valuable experience in naval warfare, while I keep absconding human-origin ships and a couple of orc rocks filled with 1 billion green mushrooms. The forge ships and the mining barges will remain here to exploit the orbital graveyard, and the first mining barge leaves with hull fragments of Necron origin towards Forge Riser. I leave a couple of destroyers to defend the miners and most importantly the forge ship as I take my fleet on a trip to Suta. I have need of the Pharos again, and perhaps arrange a deal with my Rose and the Scythes of the Emperor. A month of ship travel brings us to the edge of the Suta system, when our warp drives start to fail. Captain, the Tyranids are here. My navigator announces in a distorted voice, as if he's in enormous pain. Of course the Tyranids have returned. Suta still shines in the warp, drawing hive splinters that intersect the lighthouse's psychic beam. Captain Lancefire. Request assistance, hive ship attacking the Aegida. A crackled voice comes from the vox box. Wenchen, you heard the brave Astartes. Begin Nova Cannon bombardment. I urge my uncle while I close my eyes to encompass the hive splinter with the tesseract. There are over 10,000 bioships, and a pair of hive ships among them, one of which appears to have been struck with a vortex torpedo, and is battling demonic invaders. The other one is indeed attacking the Aegida fortress, ignoring the Scythes barges and the cruisers unloading all their lances and batteries on it. What could be so yummy inside the fortress? Oh no, silly Inquisitors. You didn't keep the Psyker Eldar still here, did you? Of course, they did. Common sense is in short supply in the galaxy, and every wrong decision brings about more unfortunate accidents. Evacuate the Eldar on a fast ship. Draw the hive ship away. I demand on the Vox channel with the Inquisitorial Fortress. Only silence answers, which isn't great. They must have orders to keep the Eldar at any cost. I search for my Rose, and she's not here. Only a group of 20 silent sisters, guarding the Eldar prisoners with stern faces and executioner blades. The other Inquisitor is here, but down inside the Pharos, doing whatever arcane examinations on the imprisoned Catan. It's a mess, and one that I have to fix. Canis licks my face for moral support, and glances at the holofield screen with intelligent eyes. Yeah, buddy. We will need to cheat again. Well then, I shall act without your cooperation, brave Astartes. I am an Astartes chapter master too, among other qualifications. One could say I am a fabricator general in the Mechonicus as well, if not an official one. Of course, I only give out broad instructions to the Forge Retribution, what type of vehicles to build and what not to build or research, but I am not a polymath and multi-specialized cyborg with millennia of experience in engrammatic litanies and neural architecture. I expect Forge Riser will keep their word and send out an explorator mapping expedition into the Eastern Fringe, which will be based on Retribution. At that point I will have access to their advanced plasma technologies, and possibly obtain miniaturized designs for reactors and plasma weapons. Nothing was heard from Antax about that STC I hinted about, which doesn't surprise me. Only the highest ranks of the Mechonicus would have knowledge of what was being done on Palomar, and the nice fabricator was surely bartering furiously for a higher classification of his forge. Raising from a third tier to the first would be the dream of any forge world leader, as that would grant them access to ancient archaeotech templates and more resources, just like Riser and Grya had. A small fourth-tier forge like Angstrom couldn't even build knights, which was something of great shame I suspect. Well, they should raise to third tier after that influx of templates and damaged hulls and vehicles I donated to them, and the fabricator was a genius no doubt. Few people would be able to work on that amantic shielding and reactors, after all. With a blinding flash, the Nova shell exploded on top of the attacking hive ship, causing a deep wound and making it turn towards us. I beamed a Nova mine right inside the bleeding cavern, and that worked wonders. The entire hive fleet trembled and fell listing on the side as their synaptic links snapped. I added another Nova mine inside the other hive ship, to be fair and even-handed. That also closed the warp rift, which demon-spouting rift worried me more than a dying bioship the size of 2 or 3 battleships. I still had 3 more Nova mines prepared for deployment in my Tesseract, all already primed and activated to detonate on contact. I only used one, splashing the main body of the Tyrannid fleet, and incinerating hundreds of bioships while wounding a few thousands to smaller degrees. Inward, I sighed at the stupidity of the Imperium's forces. It was weapons like these that would butcher Tyrannids when they attacked human worlds, and every cruiser or battleship deployed on the frontier should have them. But Nova cannons were rare, and entire battle fleets only had 2 or 3 such potent vessels instead of hundreds. Excellent targeting, Lord Lancefire. We can begin boarding the Tyrannid ships now, the Scythe captain on the fortress proclaimed victoriously. I slapped my armrest in despair. Why would you do that, Astartes? Are handheld weapons stronger than torpedoes and lance batteries? I asked in annoyance. But the Codex, the man muttered in surprise. I was almost eager to punch his stupid teeth in, at this point. These are not pirate ships that we can return into humanity's service, Astartes. Capturing prisoners or vessels is the only possible reason for boarding. If you board the Tyrannid bioships, expect to be slightly burned or obliterated while my fleet massacres their Xenos bodies. I explained in a harsh voice and shut off the Vox channel. At the same time, the Eldar prisoners and their silent guards vanished from the fortress and into my Tesseract. They weren't treated kindly, that was certain, but then those brethren of theirs were still kidnapping humans to torture them in Camorra, and my people suffered much worse. I wasn't sorry at all for their fate. They did come here to kill me, and then free the Catan godling from its prison. All fleet elements, advance and bombard the Xenos. Maintain safe distance from claws and tentacles. I ordered and arose from my chair. 100 Tyrannid bioships vanished in the Nova flares, providing me with my own tiny hive fleet that I arranged around the captured Orc boss and the Eldar Psychers. The silence soon proved to work, balancing the warfield out and keeping the potent Orcs still. In the other labyrinth, I stored the Silent Sisters, for a later use. While I was almost certain my Rose has arranged for their arrival as anti-psycho guards, I wasn't sure if they were meant as my concubines, and their reaction might be violent. After entering my private rooms, I dismissed my bodyguards and took out the enslaver staff, then brought out the leader Null Maiden. I am Pef Lancefire, I believe you were told to expect me. I told the masked sister. She glanced around in worry, then noticed my space wolf grinning at her by my side. A flash of her hands inquired about her sisters. You can use your mind to speak, my dear. This staff allows me to hear you. I explained with a mind transmission. Canis lowered himself on my carpet and began licking his progenitor glands, which was possibly pleasant and hygienic too. He didn't like showers much. A mind staff? And it works on nulls? The Null Maiden wondered in her mind. Not easily, but it is not a warp emission artifact, merely an empathic amplifier. Basically it translates modulated emotions, in the same way you can modulate electric signals for your special Morse code. I explained politely and invited her to a drink. She refused in sharp gesture. My sisters? She demanded in a worried tone. They are safe, but not available right now. Still keeping those Eldar company, in a certain sense, I said in a pleasant voice, because I could speak, unlike the poor woman. That artifact smells of Xeno origin. The sister deduced rather quickly. I shrugged in fake innocence. It came with these new warpless drives from the Macarian Crusade. There might be a Saint Bone inside or something. I didn't bother to dismantle such a relic on mere suspicion. So, what other duties did my dear Inquisitor commanded you before she left? I asked in a genial smile, while opening my null box to retrieve my warrant and the rosette. Then I also picked a digital weapon keyed to my Mio and handed over. The maiden stared at the artifacts in her hands with curiosity. An Astartes chapter master, a space wolf, and now a rosette and a warrant of trade, plus this strange ring. For a blank, you sure did well for yourself, Pef Lancefire. The sister commented in praise and sadness. Don't let the state of this corrupt Imperium fool you, my dear. Blanks are the most precious resource we have, even if the current administration shuns them. The Emperor valued Silent Sisters greatly, and they were allowed inside his imperial palace on Terra, on equal footing with the Adeptus Custodes. More importantly, His special Ordo Sinister and their powerful side titans are led by and piloted only by blanks. Only we, this rare breed, are immune to chaos, after all. I explained patiently and poured 2 glasses of expensive fruit juice from a quite distant paradise_world called Ajax. I made sure to purchase many tons of expensive food and drinks from their wares, and kept them in stasis, since my rose had fine tastes. But a silent sister with her own squad was perhaps more valuable than a mere inquisitor. The woman didn't quite believe me, although she must have seen ancient records of their glory times in the service of the Emperor of mankind. Being told she was important and valuable mattered too. "Alright, Lord Lancefire. I will share a glass with you. I am Null Maiden Gennari's Fidelia," the woman replied in my mind, and took off her metal mask to test the drink cautiously. Fidelia wasn't young and pretty like my other sisters though, perhaps in her 50s, and it showed. Well, she wasn't older than me, only lacked a rejuvenation treatment. And not for long, if I had my say about that. I have a town made only from blanks, like you and me. Thousands of people, living without fear and oppression. And I have 300 blank sons and grandsons, already sent to join the Astartes, since their gift prevents the various curses plaguing chapters like Blood Angels and Lamenters. The girls, most of them become ship pilots and then captains. In time, we will have a whole society immune to the warp. I would like you and your sisters to join us. I added in a softer voice and poured her another cup of delicious juice. Canis begged with a soft mewl, seeing me in a generous mood. "Bad Canis. Fruits hurt your tummy. You have meat pellets in your dispenser," I exclaimed in fake annoyance. My wolf sneaked next to the wall and selected rabbit meat for his lunch, pressing the rabbit icon with his paw. The bowl filled with 10 kilograms of meat pellets, while the water basin on the side began dripping a thin tendril of purified water. "Here, take your precious artifacts back. What does this ring do?" Fidelio asked after observing my wolf with amazement. "You wear it on your finger, and in dire need blast an enemy with a plasma lance. Then you leave it in a large water basin to recharge, for a whole day," I said with a grin, happy to have found out how the damn rings recharged. Only had to ask an experienced Astartes, although that idea avoided me for a decade. Sometimes the answer was closer than you thought. "Oh, you're giving it to me?" the woman murmured in surprise. "I expect we'll fight and live together for millennia to come, my dear. Unless the Tyranids eat us sooner," I explained in a hesitant voice. Would she like my gift? Would she accept it? Fidelia just nodded thoughtfully, weighing my offer and the ring in her glove. "Now I understand why the Inquisitor was so convinced. Your offer is hard to refuse, Chapter Master. But I have other duties, most importantly to my own family. We too have a pariah community, hidden away. Only a single Astra Telepathica black ship visits us once a century," she explained in a pained voice. I smiled and offered a hug, which Fidelia did accept after a short pause. "That's not a problem at all, my dear Fidelia. Your family is my family, and we simply need to bring them here. Well, after this hive fleet is destroyed, of course." I think I heard a sob, but I must be mistaken. Silent sisters stay silent. Maybe Canis said something,